continue with more Sherlock Holmes tonight on WETA.
And it's like stealing from the blind.
This man says he's a victim of robo-signing, people who allegedly signed mortgage documents without verifying them, and it almost cost him his house.
This is an industry that's broken. Their systems are completely broken, and MERS is part of that.
We'll talk to the CEO of MERS about why the record-keeping firm says it can legally foreclose on mortgages it doesn't own. You're watching Nightly Business Report for Thursday, October 14th.
This is Nightly Business Report with Susie Gay. Report is made possible by...
I'm an engineer. I love my job. I can see what it's doing for the community on a day-to-day basis. Natural gas is cleaner burning than most fossil fuels, and it's vital to finding gas in hard-to-reach areas. Develop technology to access gas in the hard fuel to homes, reliable source of energy future.
Opportunities out there. Spotting them takes expert investing for over 50 years.
This program is made PBS station.
Tonight, I'm joined by my colleague Suzanne Pratt. Suzanne, concerns escalated again today about the nation's growing foreclosure mess. On Wall Street, financial stocks really slumped as investors worried about legal scrutiny of the foreclosure process. And then in Boston, Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan said he's, quote, not so concerned the investigations would hurt the U.S. housing market.
And Tom, it was late last month when banks began to take a closer look at foreclosure documents, but that didn't stop them from seizing more than 100,000 homes in September. Exactly 102,000 properties were taken back by banks. It's the first time repos have topped 100,000 in a single month.
So we have two stories this evening looking at the foreclosure process and so-called robo-signing of foreclosure documents. We begin with Stephanie Dew and the mortgage industry's controversial use of a record-keeping firm.
This is the headquarters of the Mortgage Electronic Registry Systems, MERS, which tracks half of all home loans. MERS was set up in the 90s to keep tabs on a home loan hands. The company is owned by some of the biggest nations. Keep track of who owns what.
What we track are the parties that have those documents. So
set up in the 90s to keep tabs on a home loan each time it changed hands. The company is owned by some of the biggest names in the industry, including Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Bank of America, GMAC, Washington Mutual, and Wells Fargo. MERS CEO R.K. Arnold says the system was designed to reduce paperwork.
The mortgage industry saw a need for a database to house that information.
There's a lot of information. Home loans are packaged, bought, and sold on a regular basis. MERS' job is to keep track of who owns what.
What we track are the parties that have those documents. So we don't have the documents, but we point to the parties that do have those documents.
MERS has come into the crosshairs because it is foreclosing on properties, but its authority to do that is being challenged. Consumer attorney Ira Reingold says MERS doesn't have the right to foreclose.
When MERS goes to court and says, I have a right to foreclose against your home, courts are saying, but wait a second. If you're going to take someone's home, you have to establish you have a legal right to their home.
What gives MERS the right to foreclose?
The mortgage. The borrower and the lender have both agreed that it's a condition of this loan that MERS will be placed in the land records. That mortgage has a standard paragraph that is not different than other mortgages, giving MERS the power to foreclose. But MERS doesn't make the decision to foreclose. That's made by the people to whom the money is owed.
MERS recently opened up its website to show who owns a mortgage on a property, but in many cases the investor isn't disclosed. Without a clear paper trail, there is doubt about many foreclosures. Reingold says lenders should be able to retrace their steps.
If, in fact, these transfers were recorded properly back then, mortgage companies should be able to rebuild who owns what, right? It should be in there. And if they want to foreclose against someone's home, then they can simply identify themselves and take possession of the mortgage and note and foreclose.
If lenders can't do that, many borrowers may avoid foreclosure. Stephanie Du, Nightly Business Report, Washington.
This is Jeff Yasteen in Miami. Dennis Brown can tell you plenty about his fight with mortgage servicing companies and, by default, MERS.
It's just like, well, let's say playing in a card game, and you find out they're holding cars up under the seat.
He and his wife bought this house in 2002. Everything was fine until a not-so-funny thing started happening. The Browns were regularly sending in their monthly mortgage payments, yet somehow, some way, the servicer of their loan, City Mortgage, wasn't crediting them for the payments. And no matter who Brown talked to, no one could tell him why he wasn't getting credited or where his money was going. Still, the Browns continued to pay.
Send a monthly note in, and they said we had this much money, you still haven't caught up. So I started sending like 2 house notes a month.
This is 2 checks a month.
2 checks a month.
For how much?
What it was, I think I was...
It was like $1,600 a piece.
$1,600 a piece, and then I had to send another $1,600, somewhere up in there, and they would start getting the same ordeal.
Eventually, City Mortgage sought to foreclose on their home. The Browns hired a lawyer, Kenneth Eric Trent, to fight back. When Trent requested a key piece of paper called the mortgage assignment, he noticed something odd. The document from Mortgage Electronic Registration Systems, or MERS, was signed and witnessed, but the actual signatures of those supposedly different people were exactly the same.
It's not the kind of thing that you can brush off. How do you have 2 different people with the same signature on a document with the importance of this one, which is essentially bestowing the right upon the plaintiff who's suing my client
They said we had this much money, you still have
to take his home.
Trent had stumbled into what we now have come to know as robo-signing of key mortgage documents.
Obviously, this is an important document. It's the essence of the case. If they hadn't produced a document like this or a similar instrument, I would be entitled to summary judgment, and they would not be able to take my client's home.
As it turns out, the signers of the document weren't MERS employees. They were workers at a law firm hired by City Mortgage to do the foreclosure. Trent has since found many examples of such robo-signing. In one, the house was in Orange County, Florida, but the notary on the mortgage assignment indicated Orange County, California. In others, there hardly appears to be a signature at all, or perhaps someone was doodling instead.
What you end up with is a person that has not the slightest knowledge of the underlying loan transaction, payments that were made by the homeowner, or any to take his home.
Trent had stumbled into
right, title, or interest of any of these corporate entities to actually proceed with the foreclosure or collect payments. In other words, a person with no knowledge.
Trent and Brown eventually won in court. The foreclosure case was dismissed, but Brown knows there are thousands of other homeowners who are not so lucky.
Really worries me because what I went through, I know it took my blood pressure up. I can imagine what they went through, and they lost their homes. And not only that, they probably got caught up in layoffs and other things of that nature. So that's double trouble. And it's just like stealing from the blind.
Jeff Yasteen, Nightly Business Report, Fort Lauderdale, Florida.